In Game of Thrones, you learn that decisions can be made on and off of the battlefield that could be your rise or your downfall. And in the year of our Lord Stannis Baratheon 2024, there is a game that promises just that. So if you're one of the over 2.5 million people that's looking forward to Manor Lords, then this is the video just for you. This isn't a review or anything like that, but if the game is something that excites you or you want to learn more about it, this video is going to tell you everything you need to know about the game before launch. So first off, what is Manor Lords? Well, it's a medieval strategy game that features in-depth city building, large-scale tactical battles, and complex economic and social simulations. And you'll rule the lands as a medieval lord, and as the seasons pass and the weather changes, the cities will rise and fall as well. And with that being said, this game is going to be releasing into early access, and some people have already played the demos through Steam Next Fest and things like that, so you may have an idea of how the game plays on a basic level. But what's really interesting to me is this game started out as a solo developed project. It's since ramped up, of course, but that is coming from Slavic Magic as like a studio, and it's being published by Hooded Horse. And the early access at the time of recording is just over 10 days away on April 26th, 2024. And that's currently only going to be on PC, and you can actually play the game on PC Game Pass if you have that as well. Though I do believe there are full plans for a console release later, it's more than likely just going to be something that's once the early access is finished. Oh, and another thing, if you do play it on like Steam, there is Steam Deck compatibility to some degree. It is considered playable, not verified, it's not going to be perfect, but you may have to do some tweaking and you should be fine. Okay, now that we have those specific need-to-knows out of the way, let's talk a little bit more about what the game actually is. So Manor Lords is a strategy game that allows you to experience the life of a medieval lord. You'll grow your starting village into a bustling city, manage resources and production chains, and expand your lands through conquest. And we'll get more into the nitty-gritty of that in a minute, but the basic concept is you've got a map with all of these different regions. And as you grow your city and your region, you're going to eventually expand and maybe create a new city in the next region over after you claim those lands. And whether that be from a rival lord or not, that's entirely up to you and potentially your military prowess. But one thing I think is really interesting that they mention is that the game and its art and architecture are inspired by 14th century Franconia, where the game prioritizes historical accuracy whenever possible, using it to inform gameplay mechanics and visuals alike. Something to think about is like when there's walkways in the ground, like it's rounded off in ways that people would actually walk, not just straight lines in between trees and things like that, straight from one building to the next. Though they do say that common medieval tropes are avoided in favor of historical accuracy, in order to make the world feel more authentic, colorful, and believable, which I think is really a nice idea. And with that being said, the city building is meant to be as organic as possible. And I think the biggest aspect of this is that the placement and the way that you're able to do things is completely gridless. So you have full freedom to place things and rotate them however you see fit. One that's really interesting to me is instead of making straight lines with the roads, you can actually make curves individually with the pull of a mouse. I think that's so intriguing. And while I'm not a personal expert on this, it's said that the building mechanics are inspired by the growth of real medieval towns and villages, where major trade routes and the landscape influenced how settlements actually shaped in development. So the basic concept is you'll start spreading outward from a central marketplace. You'll build your residential, your commercial, and your industrial districts following the natural lay of the land. And you'll establish farms based on soil fertility, the position of hunting grounds according to animal populations, and ensure access to adequate resource deposits and forests to provide the raw materials needed for growth. And the housing system also seems pretty interesting. The citizens will build their homes in accordance with the plot system, and each region will be subdivided based on the roads that you actually place down and the allotted space of each of those. And they'll scale their homes accordingly. Which, if this is done automatically, I never actually got a chance to play the demo. I was really busy that Steam Next Fest. But if that works in such a way that it sounds, that's going to be really, really awesome. You're also going to be able to build extensions behind larger homes to generate income and resources that would not otherwise be available. And this is where it gets really interesting. Homeowners pay taxes in this game, but they don't just do that. They can also grow vegetables, raise chickens and goats, and otherwise supply themselves and other townsfolk with essential needs beyond what you've already managed with farms, pastures, and industries already. And with that, you're going to have to guide your settlements through the unique demands and opportunities of each season, enjoying the bounties brought by the spring rains and preparing for the harsh snows of winter. Interestingly enough, this reminds me a lot of a game that I've got a review coming out for very soon called Timberborn, in that there aren't seasons in the same way that you'd expect from this game, but in that you also have to prepare for the really, really rough droughts. And in that, I think that is a wonderful mechanic. The ability to have to hunker down, winter is coming, I think it's a great thing. And the more I see about this, the reason I brought up Game of Thrones at the beginning is this game is begging for a total conversion mod, I'm telling you. And thankfully, there will be mod support at the 1.0 release. So actually, I mentioned it, and let's talk about it for just a second. Taxes in this game are so interesting. And this is where the economic and social simulations come into play. So let's start with this basic concept. So each region that you could be in could be optimized for certain different things, whether it be farming, mining, or somewhere in between. You should always try to optimize a communication between the places that you have to make high value goods. So say you have one farm, or you have one city in one region and one city in another, you make that travel line in between them to where you can more efficiently, say, send resources to one village to make shoes, for instance. And doing so will attract merchants more often, as there is a full in-game economy of supply and demand. And you need merchants to accrue actual currency, and you need these merchants to actually accrue currency and wealth. Hell, this game's so in-depth that you can even set individual taxes in certain regions for goods sent to churches, or a percentage of grain that's taken whenever wheat is made. And all of these things can, to some degree, impact your villagers' loyalty. And I'll talk more on that in just a little bit. So setting these individual taxes by region and, sending them to the king is all a really cool concept. And talking about the king, that's one of the main ways you can actually get another region on the map. Because as you gain favor with him, you can actually attempt to try to make a claim to the land, perhaps without hostility, but it's probably going to happen. So before we actually get into the combat, I'll save that for the end of the video because it's probably the most nitty-gritty of this. As you move from each region to the next, each region has its own development tree, which is like your skill tree in an RPG. And the way you earn points for this skill tree is by building and upgrading the levels of your current buildings in the region. So as you basically become more structurally upgraded and more advanced, that's when it's like, okay, you've earned these upgrades. And as I said, you can make pleas to the king with your loyalty for sure. But some of these regions are held by other lords. And if gaining loyalty with the king isn't what's going to help, you can also interact with the other manor lords with a diplomacy screen. You can send them well wishes to kind of maximize your disposition with them, or you can declare open war with them. Either way, this is living out everyone's medieval fantasy to the max. Though when it's time to back up those fighting words, you've got a few options. You can use all that silver that you earned while selling nice and pretty shoes that you manufactured to hire a mercenary army. You'll have a limited, more heavily armored force called the retinue. And finally, if you see fit, you can use a peasant militia to hopefully defend yourself if the need arises. What I really like about the combat of this game is it all takes place in the same map in real time. You'll be able to slow down the speed of combat if you want, and you can pause it at any point if you'd like. But overall, it follows the best RTS vision that I think they could have chosen for this. In these fights, you'll have control over your forces as you would in any real-time strategy battle, creating waypoints, unit groups, and the usual movements. Interestingly enough, other factors such as positioning matter too. The height advantage is a very real and tangible thing in Manor Lords. You'll also be able to have both tight and loose formations in your groupings, allowing for more efficient offense and defense depending on the need. But with multiple fire modes for archers and stances for warriors, it's clear that even in the heat of battle, there's a lot to think about, though sometimes it's important to know when to make a tactical retreat. Outside factors like weather can be detrimental to all parties, but maintaining your unit's fatigue is paramount to success. And it's in that way that I'm super excited to see just what happens. The scale of these battles is really large. I'm not sure off the top of my head exactly what the unit cap is, how many you can have, but it is very, very large. And with how in-depth, and may I say beautiful, the city system is, you should really want to defend these places because it's going to look so homey, in my opinion. But with that being said, I feel like we've covered a lot about the game in this video. The early access launch of the game is not going to have a campaign, rather it's going to have like a sandbox mode, which is perfectly fine for this gameplay style in my opinion, but the developer has mentioned other things in possibility for going out of the early access period, such as multiplayer, other factions to choose from, other cultures or a campaign, things like that. So, whether you're excited for the game and you like this video, you're excited for potential updates that could come in the future, or you want to see those updates covered in a video, consider subscribing because this is going to be a game that I'm going to love to play. And with that being said, my name is Fallinghurts. If you liked it, like the video. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.